threesomes with a fucking triceratops. Reptar, rapping as I'm mocking death rock.
I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music. Guys, today we're going to review Tyler, the Creator's second album, Goblin. If you don't know who Tyler, the Creator is, he is the leader of a rap collective, and they just started a record label, Odd Future, Wolfgang, blah, 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 blah. They have a long name, but they call it kind of concisely Odd Future. This is Tyler's second solo album. Tyler is the leader of this group. He's a young kid. He's 19 years old.
Just turned 20.
Just turned 20 after he released.
Sorry.
And no big deal. And this album has caused massive amounts of controversy, as did his first album, Bastard, which was placed into boxes as being very shock value lyrics and placed into horrorcore, which I think is kind of ridiculous because I think there's a lot of art behind Tyler's music. He definitely has a lot of concepts and ideas and big plans and puts that all into his music, and that's something that I absolutely love when artists do. So definitely appreciate that that's being applied to rap. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I loved Eminem's Relapse so much, is because there was this big concept driving it, and that's something that I think can really add to rap. Now, if you go to Metacritic.com and look at the scores for this album, which I did last night, trying to see, a few days after this has been released, how many different scores it's got. This thing has the whole range. There's critics giving this 100. There's critics giving this 30. There's people are all over this. Most of you guys watch Anthony Fantano, The Needle Drop. He gave this a 4 after he said it was a perfect album of all time. And it really. And one thing personally, I know Tom and I, and even Ian, felt that at times on certain moods or certain days we'd be listening to this, we hated it, it was a 4 or a 5 for us, and then, sometimes it's a 9, you're just thinking this is brilliant, and really after digging and listening to this thing over and over again, I think we've come to some really good conclusions as to where we are. But I think that the main point you can take from what I'm saying is that there are just a ton of different opinions out there on this, and even within the critic themselves, I think a lot of critics are moving up and down. I think on any given day your score is going to be drastically different and not very consistent, just because the quality of the album, this is a very polarizing effort. Even some individual tracks are polarizing. Some of this album is so good and some of it is just really bad, and yet when you put it all together it's still very alluring, which is something we'll discuss further. Now, Tom, you had some great insights on this album. Share them with people.
Before we jump right into the music, I want to get into some more of the personal aspects of Tyler, the Creator, because I think understanding his persona and the ethos that he presents on Goblin is key to really getting the music. And I watch a lot of interviews of him. He seems like a great, very intelligent guy, knows what he's setting out to do, and really presents himself well. Now, to me, listening to Goblin, I feel like this the good parts of Goblin is what rap should be.
Right.
Because rap is not about money and jets and being in the club. And all this BS that has just polluted the rap world and made it mainstream. Rap originated from struggle and hardships and speaking your mind and going through this rough upbringing, and that's exactly what Tyler embodies.
Yeah, he brings the personal back to it.
Exactly, and I love that. And a lot of, it's like, I read a great article on Pitchfork that actually was written by Kevin Barnes of Montreal, and he was talking about his favorite and least favorite hair metal bands. And one of his least favorite, he said, was Stryper, because he said, Christian metal? What is the point of Christian metal? And to me, that is like what a lot of mainstream hip-hop is. It's like, what's the point of this hip-hop and rap that's just about
it's contradictory.
Money? Exactly. It defeats the purpose of why rap originated. So while a lot of people are saying that Tyler, the Creator, and Odd Future are the future of rap, but really, to me, it's more like they're the past of rap, coming back with a vengeance, reminding you where this stuff originated from.
And showing that 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids got it. They understand. I mean, the members of Odd Future range in age from 17 to 24.
Yeah.
I mean, that's showing a youth movement that's harking back to rap's roots. That's really cool.
Exactly. Now, the lyrics. The lyrics are going to be shocking and hard to digest for a lot of people.
Yeah,
but honestly, I think people are really paying too much attention to them because really it's not much new. A lot of the violent aspects and a lot of the sexual aspects you could find in like Gravediggers and Onyx, rap groups from the early 90s. And pretty much everything has already been presented by Eminem at some point or another.
Absolutely.
The difference, what I think people are really latching onto, is that this is coming from a young kid. and that freaks people out, I think. But really, if you want to be realistic about it, let's be honest. If you've been to high school or college, you've come across this kind of lyrical explicitness, if that's a word. I mean, I was telling Jake, the song Money for Nothing by Dire Straits, a classic song, has the word faggot in it several times. And people don't care. I don't even think the radio edits it, for God's sakes. But yet when a 20-year-old black kid comes along and says it in a slightly different context, people throw a hissy fit. You got to look at that realistically. Now, on to the actual music. I think Tyler as a rapper, as a lyricist, is brilliant. A lot of the wordplay is great. There are some cringe-worthy lines. Honestly, probably not even as many for me as there was on my beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, every now and then there's one that I'm like, really? But there's more that just blow my mind, and I'm like, that's brilliant.
Right. A lot of intricate wordplay.
Exactly. But the way this works on this kind of concept album about the dual nature of Tyler the Creator.
Multiple personalities.
Exactly. It's almost flip-flops a little bit. It kind of has Eminem recovery syndrome, where he's like, I'm a badass, I'll say whatever I want, and then he'll be like, but I don't mean it, don't be mad at me, and it kind of kills the ethos that he's building.
The random disclaimer at the beginning of track 3, Radicals. Yeah. I mean, it's just not needed.
Yeah, and that's another thing that Eminem did a lot. The beats. The beats start off good, and I feel like as the album progresses, they get worse and worse. There's some really good spots in the beats, and then some that are just like, sound so amateur in the production. They're not thick, they're just really washy, and like Radicals is the perfect example. The chorus, when it's supposed to be this big anthem, yeah, it's just weak. There's like not much low end, it's just kind of floppy and weak. And there's all this like, kind of like spooky Halloween organ sound. Like
I like
in the
that, though. That's kind of part of the allure, though.
Yeah, and well, my point is that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think it's overused. At the same time, I think the way the beats are structured is great. I like that there's dynamics. A lot of the times for choruses, if you could even call them rap choruses, they drop in intensity. Oh no, Sump Pump. They drop in intensity instead of just exploding into intensity. There's lots of cool piano, which Tyler plays himself. And so the way the beats are structured, the song structures, are really interesting. Let's see. So yeah, I think overall, the potential for genius is here. There's spots of it. I think Tyler is a genius, will do something genius in the future, but Goblin isn't quite it. I feel like he's just too young and ambitious to know where to draw the line and where to trim the fat of his album.
Right. And one thing that really bothered me about this album is Tyler, I feel like there's a couple odd future tracks on this album. Track 3, Radicals, and also there's Bitch Suck Dick, track 12. And I hate both those tracks. I know a lot of people like Radicals. It didn't get me, because to me, I want to hear Tyler the Creator. I don't want to hear Odd Future. That's just a personal bias in me, and part of that is because I think Tyler the Creator is very talented, and every other member of Odd Future sucks. I think they need to go back to school and maybe, study up a little bit, work and practice more in the mirror, because that's what Tyler's advocating these kids do. They need to work on it, because I feel like their delivery sucks. Sometimes their lyrical content's alright, sometimes it needs some improvement. But all in all, this, in the story, the concept itself, Tyler talks about, it's this progression where he goes insane, and there's these multiple personalities playing in his head, and then he eventually shoots all of his friends. Well, proverbially, he needs to kind of do that in real life. I think he needs to separate himself from Odd Future, at least on his solo albums, just because he's so talented, and he needs to embrace that. And I know that Odd Future is a collective, blah, 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 but then don't put Tyler the Creator on the cover, put Odd Future. Another thing I gotta say about this album, that this is an absolute, I hate this when artists do this. This album is 70 minutes long. It could be 40 and still feel long. There are a lot of crappy tracks on here. Like I said earlier, there's tracks I absolutely love. I think track 2, Yonkers, is one of the most brilliant rap tracks I've ever heard in my life, bar none. And will be on my top favorite tracks of 2011. But there's a lot of tracks here that just suck, that could have been cut and the album would have been improved. And that's just a personal opinion. I know Tyler put a lot into this. He made it as a one flowing concept, but that's just how I feel. I think, though, that going forward he would be better to use a little bit more tact in his track selection. But
yeah.
it's really, this album isn't about where Tom and I are. Tyler says himself, you know, that he didn't write it for these, you know, white guys sitting behind a camera. He wrote it for the young kids rapping in a mirror and stuff. And Tyler's had a lot of identity issues because a lot of, you know, young white kids are his biggest fans and everything. And I hope Tyler all the best and that he gets more acclaim, because I think he brings something that's a really good essence to rap that we need to see more of to bring it back to where it's supposed to be. Now, I find this album really difficult to score, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's just because on any given day I feel differently about it. Sometimes I hate it, sometimes I like it more. Now, I don't think, sometimes, I mean, I feel like I'm bounced between a 40 and a 70 sometimes.
Yeah.
And now, just a random disclaimer, I don't really think that I would ever go above 70 on this album, just because of the fact that I think there's a lot of skippable tracks, and this thing's 70 minutes long when it only earns 45 minutes, 40 minutes of playtime. So I feel kind of like settling around a light 60, but keep in mind this is a very fuzzy score because of just how we feel differently about this on any given moment of time. What do you think?
I completely agree.
Okay.
I also want to encourage people that if you're watching this at www.velocitiesandmusic.com, we're going to be posting this YouTube interview that someone did with Tyler, and I think you need to watch it.
You absolutely have to. It'll give you a lot of feedback at who Tyler is as a person and the attitude he takes when going into songwriting and making music. And that's really important to understand, especially with someone who's being put in boxes and genres, which we don't feel is fair to somebody who's looking at this as an art and a craft. But what do you guys think? The most important thing about Tyler, the Creator's music is that you go out and listen to it and you figure out for yourself, and not just listen verbatim to what Anthony Fantano, what Pitchfork says, what NPR says, or what Velocities of Music, what Jake and Tom say. Don't worry about that. Go figure out what you think about this album, because that's what's important. And if you love it, then love it. Love it to death, because this honestly has a lot of things to love about it. It's just that we have to dig in and get to such a critical level. That's what we do. We're kind of, you know, self-proclaimed music critics. We don't like it, but that's what it is. We just want to get a conversation going about it. So please go to www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic and tell us what you thought about Tyler, the Creator's album. I would really appreciate it. Really, Tom and I both love talking to you guys about music. It's awesome. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
I'm Dracula, bitch. Don't got problems smacking a bitch, kidnapping, attacking with axes and shit till I grab them throats and start smacking them shits. I'm Dracula, bitch. Don't got a